Hey Sterile Processing Professionals, Brandon the Sterile Guy here. In today's video, we're gonna break down how a steam sterilizer works and why we use steam in the first place. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future videos. Maybe let's start with steam. The idea of using steam to treat sickness in a closed space has actually been around since the late 1600s. It wasn't until 1879 that a guy named Dr. Charles Chamberlain invented the steam sterilizer. I always love that dude's name, Chamberlain, like a sterilizer chamber. Get it? But before Chamberlain was a guy named Joseph Lister, who was a British surgeon. This guy found ways to prevent surgical infection from happening after surgical procedures. So the whole idea of killing bad germs was definitely on people's minds back then. So based off that work, this is where Dr. Chamberlain was working on an idea of how to kill microorganisms on instruments before surgery occurs. Now, eventually it was figured out that high temperature and high temperature steam could kill microorganisms. However, steam is much more efficient at killing because it actually works as a transition of the heat to the microorganism. Have you ever opened the oven and felt the heat come out and hit you in the face? It's pretty hot. But what about, have you ever went to pour out boiling water in the sink, like you're putting noodles in a colander, and had the steam hit your face? It's actually much more intense because the moisture grabs onto your skin and transfers the heat directly to your skin. This is how it's much easier to get a burn if there's liquid involved, or steam can actually help the burn to actually occur. So within a sterilizer, the steam encompasses everything, all the instruments, the deep crevices of the instruments, and what the steam does is it actually causes the breakdown of the proteins within the cell wall. And the actual term of what it does is it coagulates. And coagulation means to move from a liquid to a solid state. Essentially, it hardens. And once that coagulation occurs, that liquefied cell turns to a solid. It kills the cell and prevents it from reproducing, living, anything. And that's what we want. We want dead microorganisms so they cannot cause infection. So now the question remains, how does a steam sterilizer work? Well, a sterilizer can look extremely complicated, but basically it is a chamber that can withstand very high positive or negative pressures. It has steam intake areas and valves, and a drain system where the steam exhausts. It has a door with a rubberized seal, which makes the connection and ensures that there is no air escaping in or out of the chamber. And then all the workings of electronics and gauges and pumps and pipes that distribute the steam and air and run the mechanical operations of the entire sterilizer itself. Some sterilizers are built with two doors, one on the front and one on the back, and they're actually built into a wall where you assemble and you load the sterilizer, and then on the other side you unload the sterilizer where the items cool. But more often than not, I've seen just one door where you load in and you load out the same way. Depending on the cycle used is how the steam actually works. There are pre-vac cycles and gravity cycles and what is also known as SFPP, or steam flush pressure pulse. With a gravity sterilizer, the ambient air within the sterilizer is actually removed by the injection of the steam. The steam actually is lighter than air, hovers above air, and fills until it pushes all the air out of the drain. On the other hand, a pre-vac cycle, short for pre-vacuum, actually vacuums out all the air, making it a very negative space area within the chamber so that when steam pumps in, it actually sucks the steam into the deepest crevices of those instruments. And the SFPP is a little bit different as it doesn't actually run a vacuum within the initial conditioning phase. All the air dynamics and pressures change above atmospheric pressure, and this comes in pulses. With the SFPP, you don't actually test these cycles with a Bowie Dick or a Dart test. They don't run that normal vacuum phase, and when they do run vacuum, it's above atmospheric pressure, so these tests actually won't tell you anything. It's a very different kind of technology when it comes to sterilization. You don't have to know all the nuances and everything about it, just know that it works. It's physics and it's pretty cool stuff. Now, between all three of these cycles, they're all pressurized steam. They're all effective for sterilization. You just need to make sure whatever instrument or container you're using is validated for those cycles. Once certain pressures, temperatures, and times have been met, the electronics shift to the valves and move the sterilizer through the different processes in the cycle. After the sterilization portion of the cycle, the sterilizer actually opens the drain and allows the steam to escape, exhausting through the drain. And depending on the cycle you're running, the sterilizer will generally end with a dry cycle. Some people have the misconception that this is the portion of the cycle where the sterilizer superheats up to evaporate all the air, but that's actually not what happens. So a dry cycle is either vacuuming out all the air from the chamber to remove all that moisture and heat, or it's a continual move of air through the chamber to dry and cool down the cycle. It is essentially the start of the cooling phase. Now, everything we talked about is the basic functions of a steam sterilizer. Of course, there's much more nuances to it, lots of technology differences from company to company. There's a lot to understand about a sterilizer if you truly want to get into that. But my guess would be if you want to get that detailed into it, you should probably go work with one of these companies like Steris, Bellamed, and actually learn how to be a sterilizer technician. And if that's something you want to do, I highly recommend you do that, because we could definitely use more sterilization technicians in the field. I know sometimes you have to wait a day or two because they're covering such a wide region, and that would be a super great job too. I want to thank you all for sticking with me through the steam sterilizer adventure. Any topics or videos you want to see, please put them in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I love you guys, and I will catch you in the next video.